The verdict is in.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are these your verdicts as read? So say you one, so say you all.
A former firefighter is found guilty of murder. The confusion in the courtroom after the verdict was read, and when the case heads into the penalty phase.
A new grocery store in town brings controversy with it.
It was just really rough.
The closures, layoffs, and lawsuits already happening, and what that means for local workers.
The state is collecting record amounts of tax dollars, the changing habits of Nevadans that are helping fill the state's coffers.
Now, Nevada's first choice for news. This is 8 News Now at 6.
But I'd rather be in our situation than theirs, because I can't imagine having a son or a brother who is capable of doing this type of harm.
Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Dave Corvassier.
And I'm Paula Francis. You just heard from the sister of Shauna Tiaffay moments after a jury found George Tiaffay guilty of all 7 counts, including first-degree murder.
We have live team coverage from the Regional Justice Center tonight. Vanessa Murphy talked with the district attorney. First, let's go to Patrick Walker, who was in the courtroom all day long. Patrick?
Well, David, Paula, for over a week, the friends and family of both Shauna and George Tiaffay packed the courtroom as prosecutors and defense attorneys argued their cases on both sides of this trial. And the jury had the tough task of trying to decide whether George Tiaffay hired Noel Stevens to kill his estranged wife back in September of 2012. The jury deliberated for 15 hours and decided George Tiaffay is guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. George hired Noel Stevens, a homeless man, to kill his estranged wife in her home in September of 2012. In 2013, Stevens pleaded guilty to bludgeoning Shauna Stevens to death with a hammer and testified against George last week. This afternoon, George Tiaffay was stoic as the clerk read the verdict.
We, the jury, in the above title case, find the defendant, George M. Tiaffay, as follows. Count 1, conspiracy to commit murder, guilty of conspiracy to commit robbery. Count 2, possession of burglary tools, guilty of possession of burglary tools.
Argument. Well,
there was some confusion when the last count was read. On the jury sheet, the foreman did not select guilty or not guilty on the murder charge. That was clarified about 15 minutes later as a guilty verdict. So now the trial moves to the penalty phase. George Tiaffay faces up to life in prison on those 7 counts, and that will get started. All of that phase will start tomorrow morning, starting at 8:30. For now, reporting live, I'm Patrick Walker, 8 News Now.
Thank you, Patrick.
And now let's hear from Vanessa Murphy, who was the first reporter to interview District Attorney Steve Wilson on camera after that verdict.
Dave and Paula, District Attorney Steve Wolfson says the jury did the right thing. He calls the evidence in this case overwhelming. For one, he referred to when that hired hitman pointed to George Tiaffay in court and said, "That is the man who hired me to kill his wife." Number 2, he says George Tiaffay was seen on camera buying the weapon, the hammer that was used to kill his wife. Number 3, he talks about the communication, the text messages between that hired hitman and George Tiaffay. Here's what Wolfson had to say.
Justice was served today. The man that was instrumental in causing his wife's death, it was a very ugly murder. It was an unnecessary, cruel, inhumane killing. Was found responsible today.
Guilty of conspiracy.
Wolfson says he looks forward to the penalty hearing tomorrow morning, where jurors will hear even more. And this case has been getting a lot of attention. Wolfson says he understands why. For one, you have a murder for hire plot. For 2, you have George Tiaffay being a former firefighter. And number 3, he talks about how violent this murder was. Reporting live, Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Thank you, Vanessa. Mauricio Marin is also at the Regional Justice Center tonight. He talked with a family friend.
As you can imagine, a very emotional day this evening. Shauna's family has been waiting 3 years now for justice for her murder. Now they've finally got that justice. He was found guilty on all 7 counts. Just before the verdict was read, Judge Eric Johnson cautioned the family from having outbursts in court. We spoke with one of Shauna's close friends after George Tiaffay was found guilty on all counts, including murder. She says it's been a very difficult 3 years. She misses her friend dearly. Shauna's friends have been wearing pink throughout the entire trial to show support for the victim's family. They say sitting through the trial was very difficult because of the graphic evidence and pictures presented. Shauna was beaten to death with a hammer inside her home. Now, it took the jury 15 hours to deliberate the case. We spoke to a friend of Shauna's who tells us she was worried they'd come back with a verdict setting George Tiaffay free.
I'm so happy. You know, we were a little worried that the jurors wouldn't see what we saw, and I'm just glad that they did. You know, he was a controlling person, and now he has no control, so that's, you know, perfect.
Back live out here, family and friends tell us that George and Shauna's 11-year-old daughter is probably the biggest victim out of all of this, but both families, according to Shauna's sister, are working together for the best care possible. Reporting live, Mauricio Medina, 8 News Now.
Thank you, Mauricio. We'll have a complete rundown of the George Tiaffay verdict coverage on LasVegasNow.com, as well as on our News.Vegas app. And, of course, we'll have the latest tonight at 11.
A lot more news to come yet when Michelle Mortensen reminds you to be careful who you put your trust in.
My dad calls me a bleeding heart because I trust everybody.
8 on Your Side goes through the red flags you need to look out for before you buy anything online.
A shooting outside a Whole Foods store landed one man in the hospital and another behind bars. Happened about 1 this afternoon at Lake Mead and Tenaya. When officers arrived, they found the shooting victim outside the store, shot in the arm. He was taken to the hospital with a non-life-threatening injury. Police say a man with him was responsible, and he was arrested. They say the men knew each other and it was not a random attack. A local judge does not plan to recuse himself from the TB case against Summerlin Hospital. You may remember the man who lost his wife and newborn twin daughters to tuberculosis at the hospital. Reuben White believes the hospital never looked at TB as the cause of his wife's illness until it was too late. Summerlin denies the allegations and plans to fight it in court. Now it turns out the law firm representing Reuben White had once sued State Senator Joe Hardy, and it's Hardy's son, Judge Joe Hardy, who is now presiding over the case. Judge Hardy says he can remain impartial and does not plan to recuse himself unless he's required to do so by a governing body or rule.
Well, slot machines are usually all about luck and timing, but now skill could come into play. This week, the Nevada Gaming Control Board recommended legal language that would allow for slot machines that require skill to win, or a combination of talent and luck. The Gaming Commission is set to discuss the item on the 17th. Casinos want the new game so they can hopefully attract younger gamers. Slot revenue today way below the pre-recession glory days, so if it's all approved, the new slot machines could hit casino floors sometime next year. Well, the big blue building in the southwest part of town is starting to look a lot more like an IKEA store. Governor Brian Sandoval posted some pictures today on Twitter showing the famous yellow letters being installed on the outside of the building in the Southwest Valley. If you're in the area, it'll be hard to miss. The giant letters are 8 to 10 feet tall, the sign 144 feet in length, and the store, which is near the 215 Beltway in Durango, expects to open in the summer of 2016. All right, raking in taxes for the Silver State, what Nevadans are spending more money on than ever before. And the grocery store wars get ugly, the allegations being tossed around and how it's affecting employees of a new chain in the valley.
You're watching 8 News Now at 6 with Dave Carvassier and Paula Francis. The news of Southern Nevada is now.
A new grocery store chain in the valley seems to be getting off to a rough start. Hagen recently took over Albertsons and Vons stores across 5 states, including our own. But since then, stores have closed, employees laid off, and lawsuits filed. Karen Castro visited several locations around town to find out what's behind their recent troubles.
It's not hard to find a good parking spot at local Hagen stores, but employees say that's not always a good thing.
Definitely in store, you can tell the difference with like the foot trafficking and the customers, and just nowhere near as busy.
We're not revealing his identity to protect his job, but Kevin says since Hagen took over the Vons he works for, business is not good and customers are taking notice.
They just ask why everything's so high. Things they used to buy, like a spaghetti sauce was $6, now it's $8 or $9 or so.
We've noticed the prices are higher by probably 10-15%.
But high prices is not the only worry for Hagen. What was supposed to be a major supermarket expansion has turned into a $1 billion legal fight. The grocery chain recently purchased 146 Albertsons and Vons in 5 states, including 7 in Nevada. On Tuesday, Hagen filed this complaint accusing Albertsons of premeditated acts of unfair and anti-competitive conduct, which according to Hagen has sabotaged its business success.
It's not surprising that Hagen's is really not doing so great.
Carter Davis is one of the casualties of the grocery store expansion. Hagen is not commenting on layoffs, but David says he was let go in July, along with about 12 of his co-workers from a store in the west part of the valley.
Everybody else got laid off about 2 weeks before I did.
While the 2 grocery chains battle it out in court, Kevin is considering his employment options.
I was looking at other places. I started applying just because, it's not really safe out right now.
Karen Castro, 8 News Now.
All local Hagen locations remain open, but the grocery chain has closed down 26 stores in other states.
Albertsons has also filed a lawsuit against Hagen for unpaid inventory. In fact, in a statement, the supermarket giant says, in part, Albertsons has not engaged in anti-competitive or inappropriate practices as alleged by Hagen. Well, the Nevada Department of Taxation recently reported taxable retail sales are rising in southern Nevada.
Clearly, this is good for retail businesses, but what does it mean for our overall economy? Jeremy Aguero is here with us to answer that question.
Look, overall, it's great. As a matter of fact, how and when consumers are spending their money may be the most important economic indicator that we monitor. We are, however, becoming increasingly concerned that some of those numbers are getting a little overheated. In Clark County, goods sold at retail are subject to a sales tax of 8.1%. The tax is imposed on everything from cars to can openers. However, some items like groceries and prescription drugs are specifically excluded. During the past year, these sales totaled nearly $37.5 billion, the highest level ever reported. In fact, Southern Nevada is now running well ahead of the pace set during 2007. Continued population growth and record visitor volumes are certainly contributing factors, but a closer look at spending suggests residents and businesses are simply consuming more than they did before. Motor vehicle sales is one of the fastest growing spending categories. Southern Nevadans are now spending $4.2 billion a year on cars and trucks, more than any point in our community's history. We are also eating out more. In June, spending reported by restaurants and bars totaled about $800 million. By comparison, during the 2007 boom, this number was only about $550 million. Again, record visitor volumes and the fact that we are now home to 7 of the top 10 nightclubs in the country is undoubtedly contributing to this trend. Consumers put off some purchases during the recession as well. Many of us got a couple of extra years out of that refrigerator, dishwasher, or dryer. Now we are replacing these appliances and other durable goods at a near record pace. And finally, building materials, which have lagged the broader economy, reported stronger than average growth during the past 12 months. This is a welcome sign that construction and housing sectors are continuing to recover. The concern is that our population and visitor counts are growing only by about 2% per year, but taxable spending is growing by 7% per year. This is an unsustainable trend. We don't want to see increased consumer debt essentially financing higher spending levels. Consumer spending as well as consumer debt will be worth monitoring through the end of 2015.
Okay, so taxable spending levels are up. That's what you're saying. What about tax collections then?
Yeah, look, in terms of taxable retail sales, it's the highest that we've ever seen. Yeah. Unfortunately, some other sources of major revenue, property taxes and gaming taxes, still well under where they were at the peak. We got a lot to work. We have a lot of work to do to get those back
up. It's a mixed market, yeah. All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
You bet.
From 8 News Now, this is Neighborhood Weather with Ted Florendo.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Another blue sky day today in southern Nevada. A little breezy at times, though, for the day today. In fact, we're starting to see still some of those winds outside at this hour. 96 degrees right now, winds at 14, gusts at 22. I saw them peak about 25 to 26 miles per hour. And tomorrow is about to get even windier. Right now, take a look at the numbers across the valley here. 99 for Henderson, 90 for Summerlin. New numbers to show you. The lake's at 95 degrees, Aliante at 95. So no real triple digits right now. We did reach at the century mark in some locales. 100 currently for Laughlin, 99 for Mesquite, 93 for those of you in Pahrump and Boulder City right now, checking in at 95 degrees. So not just hot here, the nation's midsection having to deal with the heat. This looks like nothing to us, right? 88 in Bismarck, 86 in Tulsa, Little Rock, 87. The Big D, Dallas at 89 degrees. But these guys here have the humidity, so the heat indices, they feel like temperature, are in the mid-90s with that humidity. Also hot and humid for New York to D.C., Raleigh at 78 degrees. They'll be in the 90s out in the mid-Atlantic for this weekend. Here for Labor Day, we've got the sizzling going on. Mike, our audio guy, put that up. Thank you, Mike. Labor Day, we had to have that. We got the barbecue here. Look at that. 97 degrees on Monday, mostly sunny skies. Winds will decrease in time for Labor Day, just in time for the sizzling. As far as our local radar goes, most of the radar shows a lot of the action way off into Phoenix, south of Phoenix, actually. And that's where it's going to stay. Good southwesterly, westerly flow will suppress all that towards the east. So we're not anticipating any type of raindrops here, unfortunately, even though we could really use it. Cold, cooler weather up in the Pacific Northwest. This will move down towards us. We will not get as cool as the Pacific Northwest, but we'll drop our temperatures a little bit. Well, one thing's for sure, as this trough here approaches us, that will increase our winds tomorrow and also for Saturday. Those will be our windiest days. We think tomorrow will be our windiest day, however. 75 degrees tonight. Cooler conditions, south-southwest breezes tonight, so we're not entirely done with the winds tonight. Still some breezes left over. 95 for tomorrow, warm and gusty. Peaking about the afternoon where we could see gusts up to 30 to 40 miles per hour. Those of you in Lincoln County, you could see them up to 54 tomorrow. Your neighborhood by neighborhood highs across the valley. Centennial Hills at 93 degrees tomorrow afternoon. I'll step out of the way here. How about that? 93 for Aliante. Henderson, 98 degrees. Green Valley at 97. Mountains Edge and Southern Highlands around the mid-90s for tomorrow afternoon. Extended forecast this weekend. 93, 95 for your highs. But take a look at your morning temperatures in the 70s. Nice. Next week, hotter in the high 90s under mostly sunny skies. Have a great day. Dave, back over here.
Thanks, Ted. Well, when people clock out of work tomorrow, it'll be the start of a 3-day weekend for many of them. A lot of Las Vegas people will be heading out to Lake Mead to enjoy Labor Day weekend. Rangers are expecting up to 100,000 people over the next few days. While the goal is to have fun, it is important to keep in mind that there have been a number of fatalities on the lake this summer. While adults can drown just as easily, Ranger Christy Vanover says parents need to keep a close eye on their children.
Anything could happen in a second, so keep an eye on your kids. Make sure there's some adult supervision at all times.
Life jacket's the first thing. You know, whether you're coming out here, whether you're the best swimmer in the world or not, life jacket's number one.
Here in the Valley, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority expects more than 315,000 visitors over the holiday weekend.
Water gushing from high atop the Stratosphere Tower. We'll show you the pictures that caught the man-made downpour, and we'll tell you exactly what was behind it.
Nevada's first choice for news. This is 8 News Now at 6.
Don't get too attached to that perfect puppy you see online. As 8 on Your Side consumer advocate Michelle Mortensen found out, people are all too willing to take advantage of your emotions, to scam you out of your hard-earned money.
Are you looking to buy a pet? Well, do I have a tip for you? Don't buy one online. You know, I've heard this same story over and over and over again in the last few weeks. Someone sends you cute pictures of a puppy, you fall in love, and you give that seller a lot of money, but you never get anything in return. Truly is a classic scam, and one everyone who shops online should be aware of. And there are a ton of red flags, which sadly, many folks just ignore.
My dad calls me a bleeding heart because I trust everybody.
Trust is important, but in this day and age, you have to be careful in whom you put your trust, as Shannon Lane of Pahrump just learned.
I didn't even pay attention to this because, you know, the misspellings.
She and her family wanted to buy a Rottweiler puppy and fell in love with one on Oodle.com. She emailed the seller and quickly agreed to the deal, missing a ton of red flags in every point of contact she had with the seller.
I didn't think. Honestly, I wasn't thinking.
Red flags are easy to miss when emotions are involved, which is why I'm going to point them out for you one by one, so you don't ever get scammed like this. Take a look. Each email is full of misspellings and bad grammar. Plus, the info doesn't add up. At one point, the dog is coming from Colorado. Then in another email, the seller claims to be in Washington. And the final red flag? They demanded the payment be wired through MoneyGram. Scammers always want you to wire money, because there's no way you can ever get your money back.
Oh my God, we got scammed. Holy crap. I was in shock.
Shannon didn't realize she was scammed until days later, when the dog never arrived.
I wanted to cry because I was ashamed of myself.
She says she ignored the signs because she was excited.
You get blinders on.
But the whole experience hasn't soured her on getting a puppy. She actually got this little guy also online days later. This time, though, she picked up the dog in person and says she's now learned a very valuable lesson, and she hopes you learn from her mistakes.
Listen to the red flags going off in your head.
Scams are so prevalent these days, and now you know what to look for so this doesn't happen to you. We're committed to bring you this information every day because we really are on your side. I'm Michelle Mortensen.
Thanks, Michelle. If you have a consumer problem you think Michelle could help you with, call her on the tip line, 702-650-1907.
If you were anywhere near the Stratosphere this morning, it might have caught your attention a little bit more than usual. Check out these pictures people on Twitter were posting. You see water spraying down and out from the very top of the tower. Water rains down about 1,000 feet. Plenty of people wondering what was going on here. Well, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue confirms it was just a test of the water safety systems for the tower. Kind of pretty. As you can tell, plenty of water available there at the top of the Stratosphere, so they passed the test with flying colors, just in case there's a fire that high.
Which there was during construction.
That can happen.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us today at 6.
We'll see you at 11.